Hello. Hello. Good afternoon. Hello, and welcome to our second webinar in a series of teacher strategies for distance learning webinars. Hello, and welcome to our second in a series of teacher strategies for distance learning webinars. I am Cynthia Vasquez-Pettit, Deputy Director here at CABE, and on behalf of our Board of Directors and our CABE team, we are proud to present this series of master teachers and other experts in the field who will be sharing effective practices to support English learners throughout California in an online distance learning setting. I hope today you are in a safe space, managing the circumstances due to COVID-19, and ready to join together with our CABE online community. I am pleased to introduce to you our facilitator for this session.
We will be starting in about 3 minutes, so hang in there.
Hello, and welcome to our second in a series of teacher strategies for distance learning webinars. I am Cynthia Vasquez-Pettit, Deputy Director here at CABE, and on behalf of our Board of Directors and our whole CABE team, we are proud to present this series of master teachers and other experts in the field who will be sharing effective practices to support English learners throughout California in an online distance learning setting. I hope today you are in a safe space, managing the circumstances due to COVID-19, and ready to join together with our CABE online community. I am pleased to introduce you to our facilitator for these sessions, Dr. Carmen Beck, an adjunct professor in the Educational Leadership Department at Cal State University, San Bernardino. Carmen.
Thank you, Cynthia. Good afternoon, CABE familia. I am very excited to bring today's webinar that is being presented by our wonderful teacher. She's a demonstration teacher for San Bernardino City Unified School District. She is going to present to us how to use manipulatives in math lessons. Not only is she a demonstration teacher, she's also a 6th grade teacher in an alternative bilingual education program at Warm Springs Elementary. So as we get ready for today's exciting session, I have a few housekeeping matters to share. So Maribel Alba is going to bring us amazing things, but we have to keep in mind that this is a webinar. So the speakers' microphones will be active and the participants will all be on mute. There will be interactive times in today's presentation, and we will use the chat box for you to enter your comments. If you would like to post a question during the presentation, please also use the chat icon on the Zoom control menu at the bottom of your screen, and the chat window will pop up where you will be able to type in your questions or comments. For better focus, we will not be using the Q&A icon or window for today. After the webinar, we'll be posting the recorded version so you can re-listen and share it with others. Sit back, relax, and get ready for 30 minutes of powerful engagement and learning. So now, please join me in welcoming Maribel Alba.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Carmen, for that introduction. I am a 6th grade teacher, as Carmen said, with the San Bernardino City Unified School District. And today I will be sharing a lesson that I did with my students in which I was able to use manipulatives, which was amazing with distance learning because it's been very different, as you all know. After each slide, I will try to make sure I stop and allow for questions and answering, just in case there are any, or simply to share some strategies that you might know that maybe we didn't share or I'm not aware of. Okay, so before I start with my lesson, I did want to share some of the tools that I have found online for manipulatives. These tools range in grade level as well as domain for math. So this first one is just a list of interactive tools that another teacher has put together on a blog. So I'll go through this quickly. I'll just show you so that you can see what each one looks like, and then you guys will have access to the PowerPoint and therefore the links on your own at the end of the webinar. So you see she has different links where you can click and also read through to see if it's something that you might need, that you would like for your manipulatives. So that's the first one. Okay, then here we have the Pearson math tools. So this is actually from curriculum, and a lot of curriculum that's digital have these now, but the amazing thing is that you don't have to have Pearson. All you have to do is copy that link and anybody can access these tools. So I like giving this link to my students, for example, and tell them which specific tool I want them to use. So I'd like to show you the geometry one just because I was teaching geometry when I used this lesson. And so you have these shapes that then you can cut apart, for example. And the students are able to visually see how the 3D shapes unfold. And so that's very nice. For the students, you can then also glue them back together. I found this very useful when I was trying to show students and I kept moving my hands. And so instead of using my hands on distance learning, I could show them these tools. Okay, so then the next one, in Spanish, there are some. So I'm going to go into the interactives from PBS. That's this one right here. And in this PBS Learning Media one, they have different resources. So I'll search for volume is what my lesson was on. And they have these called interactives. So some of them, this one has a Spanish voice, for example. So they do offer some that could have Spanish if needed. I teach 6th grade ABE, and so our program model at the time does not have Spanish. I just provide Spanish help for the students that are newcomers or are still in the beginning stage of their language development, but there are some Spanish available. What I like about this website is in their interactives, there's the ones called School Yourself. And so basically it's a lesson that is created so that the students can answer questions. And I know a lot of curriculum out there is providing these, but it's very different. I help my son with his homework and they have something like this. However, the video that teaches the student allows the student to just click play and they don't actually have to answer the questions. And so this one, I'll go through just 2 parts of it. It goes by segments. And so the student has to answer the question and get it right before they can move on to the next segment. So that's why it's a school yourself, because students can learn the concept this way. I like using this one during a lesson that I have whole group with my students so that I can then pause it where it pauses and I can ask the question to them and then they can answer in the chat. So I'll go ahead and show you.
Let's come up with a formula for finding the volume of rectangular prisms. First, let's make sure you remember what rectangular prisms are. Which of these solids is a rectangular prism? To review, click down here instead.
So it provides them review, and then they also have to click. So during a live session with my students, I would then ask them to go ahead and type in the chat and tell me, is it shape number 1, 2, or 3? And that way we can have this interaction during a live lesson, which makes it more like the actual lessons that we would have in the normal classroom. During distance learning, we want to have as much of that as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and answer the correct
Exactly
answer.
right. This solid is a rectangular prism. So let's come up with a formula for its volume. Now, finding the volumes of rectangular prisms is a similar process to finding the areas of rectangles. Take this rectangle here, for example. Suppose its base has length 4 and its height has length 2. What's the area of this rectangle? If you're not sure, click down here to review.
What I like about this is that it also has short answer where the students actually have to type in their answer. And as you can see, there's nowhere to skip or keep going. They can replay the video, but they cannot move on without answering the question. And so they can also write on the screen, or you can write on the screen if you were sharing your screen and teaching the students live. So that's how this one works. It then goes on to show the students, you know, the 3D shape of volume, etc. So it goes throughout the phases. So I really like the PBS School Yourself sections. They really make it for more interactive during the lesson itself. If they can be added to Nearpod, I think, well, you can add the link because all you have to do is go to the link. So let me go ahead and I'm going to open it again just because it's to go back to that one. So again, these are called the interactive. So back to this one, when you open it first, it gives you different ways to share it. So you can share it directly to Google Classroom, and then it'll ask you where you want to organize it. Or if you click assign or share, you can go ahead and get the quick assign, and then you'll have a link. And so you can get that link and it'll take the students directly to the video so that they can then work on that. So it's really awesome. Okay. So going back down here, the last one, and this is the one that I used in my lesson that I'll be sharing, and it's illuminations. Now, using that link that I put in the PowerPoint, it'll take you directly to all their different illuminations, and you don't have to have an account. You don't have to be a member to be able to use all of them. And then over here on the right, you have the different filters by domain, by grade level span, or the different standards. So these are awesome. They have algebra tiles, a coin box. They have paper, equivalent fractions, all kinds. So the one that I used was called cubes, and I'll go through it when I'm actually in the lesson part. So before I go on to the next slide, are there any more questions on just these tools that I put in the link?
I see a question from Irma. Maribel, it says, is it available for second grade PBS, the school yourself? Is it available for second grade as well?
Okay, it should be. They have all grade levels, but I'll go in and check. So I know my son's in second grade, so let's say he's working with money at this moment. And you can use the filters here. So second grade, there's not as many, but there's 5 search results. Here, there's an interactive game, but it doesn't seem like there's that much, no. Not there, but the illuminations, there are this one here. So I guess the answer would be not yet, or not that I saw for now. Okay. And I would encourage you, when you get the PowerPoint at the end, to definitely play with it. I spent a lot of time searching until I found something that I like, and I ended up going with the illuminations for my volume lesson. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next screen. Oops. So this next one is about oral collaboration. So when we were back in the classroom before all of this happened, before distance learning, we were encouraging students to talk and to collaborate with their teams. We still need to do that, especially for our English learners and our shy students. They, when I'm in a whole group session, my students shy away and they're turning off their camera and they're on mute and they don't interact. And so just like in the classroom, they can get lost. They're just quiet and maybe they do the work, but they're not really practicing that language, and they need to. So I definitely try to allow as much time as possible for oral collaboration in small groups. And my activities all go around that. So Zoom is simpler, and they have the breakout room option, and I provided a link to a video that walks you through it. Google Meet doesn't really have this option, so there's a workaround that this man found, and I put in the link to what I use to then create my small groups. But small groups are amazing for distance learning. I noticed that my students, when I made the small groups for them, they turned on their camera and they unmute themselves, and they're able to then participate, and they're talking about the content for the most part, and it's allowing them to practice that vocabulary and forming those sentences, which is really good for our students. So I make sure that my online lessons all have collaboration, and when possible, I include my math manipulatives. Any questions before I get into the actual lesson?
I just want to add, Maribel, there is a question regarding dual immersion. And for all of you participants, I just want to let you know that if I encourage you to write more questions, because if there are questions that we don't have an answer for yet, we're going to prepare a Q&A that is related to everything we discussed, where you're going to have access to the chat as well. And that way, no question is going to go unanswered. And we will address that after the webinar. So keep writing your questions and we will move on. And Maribel, take it on.
Okay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and move on to the lesson. I created this specific lesson. It was a discovery lesson on finding volume. And I like doing my lessons on Google Docs or slides, and they're hyperdocs. So in my lessons, I start by explaining the tasks that students will have to do. And I provide links to the resources write on the tasks themselves, which then I'll click on it so that you can see it better. These hyperdocs, because I want them to encourage collaboration, I do provide students with a link that allows them editing rights, and it allows them to write directly on this. They have been working on these types of assignments for a while, so they know how to follow the rules for not deleting things or not writing over each other. So I go over my instructions during the whole group live session. They don't have access to the document yet because just like in the classroom, they'll start clicking on things and trying to fill out stuff before they actually know what they're supposed to do. So I like sharing my screen and going over the task before I give them access to the document itself. So I do teach 6th grade. So I allow them to sign up for a group themselves. So they pick their groups because even though we're having distance learning, the students have let me know that their teenage or preteen drama is still going on. And so friends are changing every day, even though we're not at school, and it's hard to keep up when I'm not there in person. So I rather have them sign up for their group themselves. That way they enjoy who they're in a group with, and therefore they're more likely to collaborate, which is what I want them to do. So they then have their group links are right here. They can click and join their groups. They fill in their names here in the middle section. And then this right section here has dimensions for each of their prisms that they were going to work on so that they could all have a different product at the end. And I provide links right in the same document. So all this is created one document, and the entire class will have all of their work within here when possible. And it makes it really easy for me to grade, to go over, and for the students to receive feedback as well. It's just one place to go. So this has their manipulative. It is just the link to go to use it. These are the directions on their team. This is where they'll be posting their work. So I did decide to do it on a Padlet so that students could post their work. And this tells them right here what exactly I want posted on the Padlet. And so I go over all of this. I provide sentence frames to make sure that they're using the academic language. And then I let students answer any questions. Once they're ready, I just go ahead and share this with them. And I make sure that they have the editing rights. That way they can all go in here and start writing and clicking on things. So I did see that there are some questions. So I'm going to see if I can answer some of those. Okay. Okay. All right, I think they've been answered. Okay, so then this is what the students would do. They would pick a group, they would start their group meeting. And what I like about how the link that I shared on the video on how to create these cannot be started by students. So I have to go ahead and open each room. So as I open each room, I end up having a tab for each room open. And then I'm able to monitor their groups, listen to their group conversations, and see that they're actually on task. I can see that students are sharing their screen with each other and getting feedback from their team, which is really beautiful to see. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the illuminations. This is that last link on the manipulatives that the students were using. So you see that the link would take the students directly to here. And then they're able to play with the shape. So they can fold it up. They can then unfold it again. And I saw students doing this when they were sharing their screens in their group, and they're asking questions. And some questions are, you know, very high level thinking questions. Other questions were just, so what are we supposed to do here? And then before I get to the group, I hear another student explaining it to them, and they're talking. So here is the settings where they could customize their shape to the dimensions for their team, as I asked for. And then they were supposed to fill it up with cubes. And you can see that as they click the cube, the counter is counting the cubes. And I did this lesson without telling them how to find volume. I didn't give them the formula. The point of this lesson was discovery, for them to find out what they could do to find volume, or what volume is, based on this activity. And so one thing they had to do was fill up the entire shape with cubes, and they saw that it took 60 cubes. Then another task was to fill it up with layers or rows. And so they could see all the different parts. And then they had to put what they thought the volume was, and they can click here and it says that's correct. So, and then this could even lend itself to surface area because you have the net of the shape. So I had students take screenshots of each part and they worked with their team. So, let me see. I think I already have this open. But they took screenshots of their work so that they can then post it for me. And that was here on this Padlet, which I'll open in a little bit. So I saw that there were some questions.
One of the questions, Maribel, is there from Zenovia, and she was asking if you know if there are manipulatives that are in Spanish. So the same as what you're showing us, but in Spanish.
I know somebody posted that the Pearson ones are in Spanish. You would just have to get the link for the Spanish ones. And some of the other sources, like the videos, I would have to check to see if they're in Spanish, but I know PBS had some that said Spanish language. So they would be there. And for example, I think some of the manipulatives, like the cube one that I used, lends itself, even though the directions, I mean, it says volume, that's a great chance to introduce cognates, for example. Volume, it's like volumen, and you know, clicking, cubes, escubos, it's not the best, but those are available in English. I didn't check to see if they were in Spanish, but I can definitely check into that. And like you said, we would provide the Q&A part afterwards, and then if I find that they are, then I'll definitely put that in there. But I know I have a newcomer, and so what I try to point out to him as much as I can are all of the cognates, and then he usually stops me in the middle where I'm explaining and he says, I get it, and then he keeps going. Because it's so interactive, it's usually easier to work with it, especially with the primary ones like the money and the coins. Those translate to English or Spanish because it's money. Okay. Thank you. Somebody is providing a link for Spanish games. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so the Illuminations one is from NCTM, but the link I have in the slideshow actually allows you to go straight into all of the Illuminations. When I try to go about it different ways, like searching on Google, it required me to become a member. And well, you know, we pay for a lot of stuff already, so I didn't want to do that. So the link that I found allows you to go straight into the Illuminations. And that link is in this PowerPoint, which we will share the links to at the end of this. Okay, so the next slide is what I was talking about, which is the accountability part. So instead of just allowing the students to play with the manipulative, I wanted to make sure that they were using the manipulative for what I intended it to be used for. So there's different ways that I've done that. The first example is to put it within the Google Doc itself. So I just create another column and it asks them to post a screenshot of, in this example, it says post a screenshot of your score, but it could just say post a screenshot of, like if you were using coins for primary, since a lot of the questions are on primary, say post a screenshot of, you know, the different coin arrangement for $1.50. And so they would take a screenshot of the coins that they used on that manipulative. So I love being able to put it in the same document because again, you can see all of the groups work in one document. And then also the students that are kind of lost or hesitant, they can start seeing those groups that go ahead and are much faster than the other groups. They can see those examples. And then it either affirms what they were thinking or it takes them in the right direction so that now they, you know, they get their own ideas and they can start going. Instead of if they were on their own, they didn't have any other student examples to use, that kind of stops some of them and it hinders their learning because they're so worried about posting something. But we all have those students that are very excited and they move on fast. And so those are always wonderful for examples. Okay, so another way that I do this is through an outside app. So for my lesson that is going to be shared with you on my volume lesson, it was a Padlet. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. I like using Padlet because it's also another place where all the students can post all of their work at once. And also they can view each other's work all at once. So this is the Padlet. This is actually the ones that my students worked on. Okay, so I made a column for each group and then they put the names of the group members there. They have all of their parts that I asked them to do. So the first one, they have a summary using the sentence frames, and some use more sentence frames than others. But that's what happens in a regular classroom anyway. And then you can see they added their screenshots. So this one was just using cubes, and you can see their screenshot here that they use that tool. And you can see the counter that this shape took 1,197, and the students understood that that meant that that was the volume. And this was without myself having taught volume at all. So this was their very first exposure to volume, and I used the manipulative for them. And so each group then had their own column to post in, and they could all see each other's too. I did hear other groups discussing, again, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? And I was helping the groups because this was all happening as I had my live session running. And so that they could all hear me, I would tell them and try to answer them. But then the best part was when students started posting, those students that understood the directions and were able to get started right away, then the other students were able to see the post and they were able to add. And as students are posting, I'm talking out loud and telling them, you know, group 3, great job. That's a great screenshot. You know, you found the volume, or that's a great summary. And so the students would then redirect their attention to the Padlet and would check what I'm talking about so they could use that as an example. So that's why I like posting everything on here. Let me see, I see a question by Jennifer. She said, did your kids already know how to take screenshots and how to post their work in interactive documents? So yes, we had been working on this before. We were one-to-one, but I still had students, once distance learning started, that, you know, had that question, wait, how do I do a screenshot? So I did provide that and go over it again, whole group, before the lesson. So that was what took the longest during this lesson, was explaining to them and walking them through the steps. Okay, if you want to make a screenshot, you know, you do this. Or if the students were having trouble, I would go into their small group live session that they have, and I would then share my screen and show them how to do it. And that worked out fine. Or the best part is that because they're in groups, usually somebody in the group knows how, and then they tell their group members how to do it, which is what makes my life easier because I don't have to reteach 30 students. They can help me by reteaching the little group that they have. Okay, so then, and somebody's asking about the manipulative tool on illuminations. Yeah, so using the manipulative, those instructions are here. So, oh no, so okay, so I didn't provide many instructions on how to use the manipulative itself within the task. I went over those instructions with my students. So I went ahead and I clicked on the cube link, and then I showed them how they can play around with it. So during the live session, I shared my screen and I told them, you're going to be going here and you have these tools. You have a cube, a row, a layer, and you're going to use those to try and figure out what is volume, how do you find volume. And I think that's what puzzled the students the most. They were worried about, you know, they're used to getting all of the answers. Oops. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Maribel. You're good.
Okay, it said my audio wasn't working, so I got worried. Okay, so then, yeah, what puzzled students was the fact that I was trying to make them have a discovery instead of me teaching them something. So if anything, that's what threw students off. They were like, wait, we don't know how to do volume. How are we going to do that? But it worked out fine. I told them just try and play with it. And so that's what manipulatives are for them to play with. And so they got to it. So that was the scary part for them, was the fact that they weren't given any information on volume besides here, find volume using this tool. But that's where the discovery happened, and they were all able to find it. Okay, so the next part that I have that I wanted to go over is providing feedback. So again, I love HyperDocs because you can provide feedback right on the HyperDocs. So as you see in this screenshot here, I added another column to the document. If you plan to provide feedback within the document, just have that column ready. And I love using my Bitmoji, so I provide the feedback right there. And the students are all on the same document, so they can see the feedback. They can see if a group, got a thumbs up, so they know that that's the group, that's the example to look for. And then I also provide, if the answer is not correct, or they didn't post what I wanted, or they're not getting to where I want them to be, then there's also, some emojis that can show that, just questioning look, or take a look at it again, maybe with the lupa or something. So there's definitely ways, or you can just type a little feedback for them there. And it's easy for me because maximum there's 10 groups. So there's only 10 feedbacks that I have to give, and I don't have to do it whole group, because sometimes that intimidates kids, especially if they don't feel confident about their work. So providing the whole group some feedback, and maybe out loud, I might say, group one, go back and check your work. Then at least, I'm not calling out a student by name, because that can free some of them. On Padlet, you have different choices for providing feedback. I chose the grade one because it was worth extra credit. So then that way they could just count up. And again, even on the Padlet, they're able to see what their score was. So students are always asking, what's my score? And I would just tell them it's on the Padlet, count up, the scores that you got. So being able to provide feedback right away for me, so that it's really easy, instead of having to tell the students to wait until I go through and grade their work, is it has been really amazing, because the students know that they did a good job, or they know exactly what they need to go back and check. So providing these types of assignments where everybody's working, the whole class is working on one document or one Padlet, has really changed it for me. It makes it really easy to grade. It makes it really easy for all of us to collaborate. The students just have to look on one document, and they know how they did before they leave the class. They don't have to wait. So that's basically my lesson. I see that there's some new questions. Yes, so any other questions overall? I know that we're providing the PowerPoint that has the links, and I even provided QR codes within the PowerPoint so that you can scan them with your phone if you'd like. And then there's also lessons within there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maribel. You've done an amazing job. This was excellent. Thank you for sharing your expertise in support of all educators and families. This has been a powerful addition to our Teacher Strategies for Distance Learning webinar series. And I know that there's going to be several of us that are going to rewatch this, because there were amazing tools included. So we appreciate that. I want to say thank you to Cynthia and Maribel again. Thank you to all of our participants for joining our second webinar, I'm sorry, on the Teacher Strategies for Distance Learning. And just so you know, our next one is going to take place on Tuesday at 2 o'clock. So on behalf of the CABE Board of Directors and the full CABE team, we hope that you have found these strategies valuable to your work with students. Check out our CABE Facebook for more information on our upcoming webinars, and visit our CABE page at www.gocabe.org to find the recording of this session and the handouts. All the materials are going to be posted by tomorrow. So please stay safe, be well, and know that we are all in this together. We are CABE strong. So thank you y hasta la próxima. Bye-bye, you guys.